Dana White taking over the sport of boxing. A lot of boxing fans are worried because they feel like Dana White's invading the sport and everything going on with the UFC. I'm going to give my opinion, my breakdown, because honestly, I watch both sports. Obviously, you guys know this is a boxing channel for a reason. You know, I definitely have covered more boxing events. I've talked about more boxing events and whatnot. Talked to a lot of more boxers. So maybe I'm a little biased, but let's get into it a little bit. Obviously, Dana White's a legendary promoter. He's a legendary businessman. One of the only guys that was able to keep the sport alive during the COVID time. So he deserves a lot of credit. Turned the UFC into what the UFC is. And, you know, all credit to him. But when it comes to the sport of boxing, we got to understand a key term that I like to talk about when it comes to stuff like this, and it's instant gratification. You look at the UFC, what's their argument against boxing? We make the big fights happen, you guys don't. But yeah, at the end of the day, you know, that's not everything. That's called instant gratification. Yeah, the UFC and Dana White are making big fights within their sport. They're making the big matchups. But guess what? They're losing all their stars. Sean O'Malley, Israel Adesanya. That comes with a price. You know, I'm not saying the best shouldn't fight the best, but ultimately by giving Sean O'Malley, Adesanya more time to kind of choose the choose the fights that they want to make and the fights that appeal to them stylistically, fights that are winnable for them. That's what builds a star. That's what builds their stock. I feel like Dana White is a great promoter in terms of, you know, he knows how to get people excited because he's making the big fights, but that's not the only job of the promoter. A thing, you know, that matters in promoting boxers, specifically promoting fighters in general, is that you allow them to build themselves. You allow them to grow. It's not because we don't think that they're ready for big fights, but they're not at their maximum potential just yet. And I feel like Dana White hasn't done that in his own sport. So to bring him to boxing, to get into boxing, and you say that you're going to make it all under one umbrella, you're going to eliminate all junior and super weight classes. You just want one weight class, you know, for every division, and ultimately you want to take out all of the other belts and make it a singular belt for every division. That's not going to ultimately solve the problem, because these belts have reputation. Ultimately, you're not going to gain the respect of all the sanctioning bodies, and just making one belt isn't going to make you the most highly respected belt in the sport of boxing. That's just not how it works. It's always going to be the WBC, the IBF, and, you know, the WBA. Obviously those were the legitimate belts that are going to be won. The WBC is obviously very legendary, and for Dana White, he's accomplished a lot. You know, he's made big fights happen, like I said before, but it's not all about that. You know, boxing's building their stars. Promoters, yeah, it's difficult to make big fights happen, but in the time where people are saying, man, is Tank fighting Shakur yet? That fight is growing more money. You know, while these fights marinate, while time is passing and the fight hasn't taken place, the truth is that money is still being made on the fight, because ultimately the stakes are growing as time grows, right? Because Shakur and Tank are the best fighters at 135. Even with Tank's last performance, that's still the case. Shakur and Tank are the best fighters at 135. So even though the fight hasn't happened yet, these fighters are going to get more compensation the longer it takes for the fight to be made. Ultimately, that's how the sport of boxing works. Dana White hasn't followed that recipe. He's said, all right, let's make the best fight the best right away. It doesn't matter how much money that could be made if they waited a little bit longer. He's just saying, get the best and most exciting fights out of it. That's instant gratification, as opposed to boxing, where I respect boxers enough to say, hey, these guys deserve to be compensated. So even though these fights may get, you know, delayed a little bit, Spence and Crawford took a longer time, they both maximized the financial benefits of it. The same with Ryan Garcia and Tank. It took a little bit of time for that fight to be made, but it eventually got made, and they maximized the financial outcome. Pacquiao Mayweather, maximized financial outcome. The UFC doesn't know how to do that. They make big fights happen. Yeah, you get the big outcome, you get the big event on one night, but then after that, these stars, you don't have to sacrifice that financial outcome that could have been made if they had waited and allowed the fight to marinate longer. So that's my only concern with Dana White. Obviously, I know he's a great businessman. I know he's a good and cool dude and everything like that, but just thinking about the well-being of boxing, those are some of my concerns. You know, allowing stars to really build themselves up so that they're not too green, entering huge fights that they're not ready for, and that they're fighting the best when they're feeling the best and they've maximized their potential. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about Dana White kind of getting into the sport of boxing with Turki Al Sheikh. But thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.